got some breaking news in baseball. Jeff Passan reporting that the Cubs traded former MVP Cody Bellinger to the Yankees for reliever Cody Poteet.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is the Rooftop Sports. Here I am joined by my good old friend Steve, who you saw most of the season for the 2024 Seattle Mariners. And Steve, how have you been, as it has been quite a while?
Oh man, I'm amazing. Amazing, man. I'm excellent. I have no quips, no qualms, no worries, man. Just trying to bear through the cold ass, Great Lakes winter out here in the fighting town of Flint, Michigan. Tell you what, man. I mean, outside of not being prepared again for the Great Lakes cold, I will say though that we're just hanging in there. But it's all good. Yeah, everything is good, man.
Yeah, it's good. Well, as for myself, just got through another power outage that lasted for about 5 hours, so it wasn't as bad. I think it was like some kind of really minor windstorm, but the way that my area operates on power lines, it seems that if someone sneezes, the power is going to go out. That's how it felt.
I was going to ask you, what the hell's going on out there in the Pacific Northwest? I mean, you guys had that storm
bomb
out
cyclone.
There. Yeah, you had the bomb cyclone that knocked power out for a week and a half, and I'm like, God, like, is it the gale force winds coming off Puget Sound to the point now where as soon as the power comes back, somebody up there saying, wait for it, and we're going to turn off the power again. What's going on?
I still think that it was someone just had a really bad sneeze, achoo, and power's gone. I think that's what it basically was.
No, you know what I think it is? I think you're in the grips of a jackass hacker who's like busted into the mainframe. He's got his finger on his mouth playing, nope, click. That's what it is. You got a renegade jackass hacker out there. That's
holding Puget Sound Energy ransom for some little extra cash.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. He sent a threatening email that was coded. His VPN can't be traced down by the FBI, and so he's extorting PUD, and he's extorting Seattle City Light. Like he's just taking him for all his money. The renegade hacker. I'm going with renegade hacker.
I'm going with the bad sneeze. Well, anyways, the reason why we're here is the Yankees once again gets our attention. As soon as we thought that they were going to have a decline since they lost Juan Soto to the New York Mets, which was a shocker, nope. Yankees were resilient and they found a way to get another all-star from the Chicago Cubs, Cody Bellinger. And what makes that trade even more shocking is how much the Yankees gave up. They gave up Cody Poteet, who didn't even play that much. He played just 4 to 5 games as a starter, had a good ERA, and they received Cody Bellinger and $5 million, while randomly the White Sox got Matt Tiasis, can't even say his name. Cubs received cash, so they basically received just cash and a pitcher. And all the Yankees had to do was just absorb Cody Bellinger's contract, which is pretty much a 1 year at this point because, yes, he has another couple years, but there's a player option. And it made me think, while these other teams are making deals and swinging around, what are the Mariners doing? But before we kick the Mariners' butts on this one, let's talk about the New York Yankees and how they were able to swing such a deal like this. Like, credit to Brian Cashman. Got to give him props on that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, this is what Cash does, right? When one remarkable player leaves, now don't get it twisted. Cody Bellinger certainly isn't Juan Soto, but that being said, you have to at least try to recreate Soto's production in the aggregate, and that's not a bad start to get a guy like Cody Bellinger. I think Cody only had 1 year left. He's got an option for 2026, so that certainly could play a role later on down the road for the Yankees. But when you consider that, it's $20 million this year because they got $5 million to offset some of that contract. So I mean, to get at least to get at least 1 year of Cody Bellinger in a ballpark that 100% suits his his hitter profile. You can't, I hate to be all cliche about it, but I mean, they hit one out of the park with this one. And the remarkable thing was that, they got him while only surrendering Cody Poteet, who I like Cody Poteet. I think he's solid. Granted, in New York system, I think he was the odd man out. He certainly is a high prospect, but you would like to think that the Cubs would get more than just Cody Poteet for a dude like Cody Bellinger, but it is what it is. This was a perfect move for the Yankees, really.
And I do think that this is a kind of move that the Mariners could have made. Like, just by looking at that, I'm like, that's a type of move that, of course, if Jerry DiPoto and Justin Hollander had a little bit more balls, I think they could have easily done a deal like this, because this is a type of deal that he could easily pull off. And someone like a Cody Bellinger would be useful, because not only can you put him at first base, but you can also put him at outfield in case Randy Arozarena doesn't play up to his level, which he doesn't really. Julio needs a day off, or if he's injured because he gets injured. Or what about right field and Victor Robles? What if he doesn't work out? Because as good as a half season he had, I don't trust him doing it on a full-time basis.
Well, I think you just hit on the most interesting aspect of it. Is he gives you exactly what Jerry DiPoto preaches, which is roster flexibility. He can play more than one position, right? The Mariners have a wide open hole at first base, but they also, believe it or not, have a hole in right field as well too. Because I don't know how you feel about Victor Robles. I look at Victor Robles as a fourth outfielder. Like, I understand, like, because of the lack of productivity and some injury issues, that he was forced to play every day. And of course, he had a nice month and a half in a Mariner uniform that magically got him a multi-year deal extension. Okay, great. But are you comfortable going into the season with Victor Robles starting, playing every single day? No, of course not. Right. So, to me, this was a lack of vision. Here's the thing. I don't care what the Mariners are saying. Right. So it's a weird thing. Like, there's a few things that I have red lines with, right? So here's like a good example of a red line. Anything that our government tells us, I completely ignore and think the opposite, right? So it's the same thing with the Seattle Mariners. Every single thing that they tell us, I just assume the opposite. I call bullshit automatically and just assume the opposite. So when they're saying that they only have $16 million to play around with, I say that's horseshit. Of course they have more than that, or they wouldn't be talking about getting Roku Sasaki, the Japanese pitcher, right? Because I mean, that's probably going to cost you somewhere in the realm of $50 million in order to get, right. So if you have the necessary funds to pick up a Japanese pitcher, then you have the $20 million to get a dude like Cody Bellinger to come and play. And that's the beauty about Cody Bellinger is it's really just a 1 year deal with an option. So if you don't want to bring him back past 1 year, you have the option to set him free, right? So, and that's, again, another trait of what the Mariners like. They don't like long-term contracts. They don't want to be locked in, they don't want to be locked in multiple years, and you wouldn't have to do it with a dude like Cody Bellinger. And oh yeah, the Mariners are absolutely loaded in the minor league system where they would be able to facilitate a deal for a guy like Cody Bellinger. And it wouldn't cost you anything in your starting rotation in order to get it done. You might be able to get rid of it. You might be able to get Cody Bellinger for who's our sixth starter?
Logan Evans or Emerson Hancock.
There you go, Emerson Hancock. Sorry, his name is escaping me. Yeah, but I mean, you probably would be able to facilitate it for a dude like Evans or Hancock. You know what I mean? Like, and it wouldn't be that big of a loss for you. And it just, like, when I heard this and I was like, okay, like, it's like the idea, the thought of the Seattle Mariners never even crept into my mind, because if they really wanted him, they would have been a player for him last offseason. They weren't. So what makes me think anything different 1 year later? Not much.
I know. I agree, but it's like, just the worst part of it is how much the Yankees only had to do. Like,
yeah,
they gave up basically, no offense to that pitcher, a peanut.
Yeah.
And they got cash out of it, and that's something Jerry Dipoto could have done. And if they didn't want to keep Luis Castillo to get that third baseman, which is something the Mariners should do if they are saying that they are playing with those kind of budget constraints, then that's something they could have done. They could have gotten like Jordan Westburg, which granted he probably would have cost a lot, like Luis Castillo and probably a top 5 prospect, but fine, whatever. Maybe Alec Bohm.
Westerberg's awesome. Yeah, but Jordan Westerberg is awesome. Alec Bohm is pretty good as well too. And of course, because they got rid of because they non-tendered Josh Rojas, they don't even have anybody. They don't even have anybody that you can fall back on. They don't even have a fallback option at third base, right? So the idea that you're dealing with all these, I don't know, man. Like, again, I don't buy the budget. I don't buy it at all. I think this is just Jerry Dipoto. 100%. I think this is just Jerry Dipoto doesn't like the profile of Cody Bellinger or Cody Bellinger at T-Mobile Park. And I also believe that he's overvaluating certain members of our starting rotation as well too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you just brought up Luis Castillo, how he wouldn't do it for Westerberg or Bohm, but he also wouldn't do it for Tristan Casas straight up either. And I kind of agree with that. But at the end of the day, though, it's like, I think you're overvaluating and overhyping the fact that Luis Castillo is not 2022 Luis Castillo. I know we were talking about Bellinger, but we just kind of went off on this Castillo rant. But yeah,
which is pretty much the next part of the segment anyway. And I think we've pretty much covered enough about Cody Bellinger that the Mariners could have pulled off a deal like that. Wouldn't have hurt too much into their alleged budget constraint. At this point, I'm calling it an alleged budget constraint because I cannot buy the $16 million or whatever. But we'll move on to Luis Castillo, where last week, Jerry Dipoto and the Justin Hollander crew, they tried to pull a trade, sort of, with the Boston Red Sox to get Tristan Casas, and the response on Twitter by Boston fans were funny. They were like, how dare you? And us Mariner fans were like, no, I think we are actually losing this deal because I would not do a one-on-one with giving away Luis Castillo for Tristan Casas, knowing that the Sacramento A's are actually spending money, and they did on Luis Severino, and now he's actually worth more contract-wise than Luis Castillo, and they pretty much have similar traits between each other. So at this point, 100%. Luis Castillo is actually undervalued now.
So now on one side of the argument, you're looking at the remaining contract value of Luis Castillo. What are you getting versus what are you paying? I believe he's at 22.5. I think when he re-extended, I think that's where he's at right now. I think he's making 22.5, and you're essentially trading him and his contract for a dude who is still not even arbitration eligible yet. So he's still got a lot of club control interest in Casas. So you're essentially getting off Castillo's contract, which means Boston has to absorb it. And the question is it worth it, right? From the Red Sox side of things, is it worth it to trade for a guy who is getting ace money but not giving you ace quality? So from Boston's standpoint, I can understand Red Sox fans saying that's insane. That's insane because look at the production of what Tristan Casas is giving you for the amount of money that they're actually paying him, which is pennies on the dollar. I can understand it from their standpoint by saying that that could be a little insane, but I also understand from the Mariners standpoint where, as you just said, but would I make that deal 100%? Especially if you know the Mariners are going to be on the hot pursuit of a dude like Sasaki. That to me, I would do that. I would actually do that straight up. Although I'd probably ask Boston for maybe like a prospect that's blocked somewhere at the major league level. So if you want to get some depth at a position where you feel like you need it, maybe Boston's got a third baseman that, the third baseman that's at AAA Pawtucket that can't get to the bigs because he's, obviously blocked at third base.
Well, I think personally, like, I didn't like the idea of the trade because Mariners, I think we can all agree that there are more of needs for third base than a first baseman. So even if you do pull off that trade, then it's still like, what are you going to do for third base? Because
agree with that.
Because after that, if you traded away Castillo for Tristan Casas, then you don't have the Castillo asset anymore to get a third baseman, unless you want to get into the minor league prospects, which only problems with our top 5 is only one of them is possibly MLB ready by 2025, while the other ones are like at least 2 years away. So I could see why still trading those prospects would be tough, even though they should give it a try. And Jared Dipoto and Justin Hollander should sell them the idea that, for example, Luzardo Montes, as much as I don't want to trade him, but sell them the idea that, hey, this guy is taller than Yordan Alvarez. He's a big dude. He's got power. Sell the idea. You're a salesman. And I would not hire those two to be my salesman for a company.
I happen to agree with you, right? I mean, trading him straight up for a dude like Tristan Casas, you're essentially selling low. And you actually devalue the asset of what he actually is. 100%. I happen to agree with you. So if you're going to trade him, then you want to trade him. You want to trade him to a team that's going to give you multiple pieces back that you're going to actually get the bang on the bang for the buck, right? And that's why that trade for Alec Bohm intrigued me a little bit because I would probably assume that it wasn't just straight up for Alec Bohm. I thought I read somewhere that it was Alec Bohm and somebody else.
I think Montes was in that picture.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I'm at this point where if you're not like, if the only thing that you're doing in free agency right now is bringing back Carlos Santana, that means that you have multiple holes to fill and you have assets in order to facilitate those holes. So what's the problem? What's the problem with it? Why haven't we seen them fire the first bullet yet? Like, you can sit there and say that we're talking, okay, that's great. Talking is good, but where's the action, right? So I just think that I think the biggest issue here is that Jerry Dipoto is overvaluing a dude like Luis Castillo. Right? He's not going to pull the trigger on something unless they actually get more than one piece back in a deal, because obviously if you can kill two birds with one stone, if you can pull out a deal where you get let's say Alec Bohm and what's their second baseman?
Let's find out.
I want to say it's like Bryson something or other.
I'm looking up right now. So Philly's second baseman is what you want to know?
Yeah.
Let's find out. And we'll get to that Carlos Santana stuff momentarily. Bryson Scott, 11 home runs, 245.
Yeah, Bryson Scott. Like if they were able to facilitate something where he's like, okay, cool. But Castillo's an all-star, Castillo's this, that, and the other. And, his contract is the statement of the work that he put in, but the work that he's going to put out as well too. Now, of course, it's BS because we've seen Castillo now for 2 years not live up to the extension in which he got when he came over in 2022. Is he good? Yes. Is he great? Not really. He has moments, but that being said, who would you rather have at this point, right? Like, who would you rather have as your ace right now? Luis Castillo, or would you rather have
Logan Gilbert, George Kirby?
Logan Gilbert.
Those are good guys.
I would rather have Logan Gilbert at the top of my rotation. No offense to Luis Castillo, right? So that's the thing. It's like, in my mind, it's is he good? Yes. Is he overpaid for the output? A little bit. So it's not like you have to settle on a deal, but you have to be realistic of where he's at in the market, right? So would a team rather just go out and get a guy who is equivalent in skill set and rather just do that on a 3-year deal? Or do you want to trade? Do you want to trade assets in order to get that dude at that skill set. And I think a lot of teams are looking at the Mariners like, yeah, we're gonna need something back more in return than just Luis Castillo to offset the fact that he's kind of overpaid.
Yeah, which is why like when I made a video about what the Mariners have to do to get the likes of Jordan Westberg or Alec Boehm, they would have to give up at least one of the prospects to make it work. Now, if the Mariners traded like George Kirby or Logan Gilbert, who are just entering their arbitration years, then the prospects may not have to be in play. But because it's Castillo, and understandably that he has a huge contract, then yes, you're going to have to give up one of the top 10s, which I'm not afraid to do because the Mariners, they got a third overall pick and they got it out of their butts because they had a 0.5% chance. So if anything, they should be leveraging on their assets, but they're not doing that either.
Correct. And that's the insane part of this entire equation. You're left scratching your head like, what are you like, what is your plan? Right. See, that's the I guess that's, to me, I don't know how you feel about it, but to me, that's the frustration, right? Because we're so far away from where we were in 2022. Like we're not close. Like if you ask me today, are the Mariners actually a playoff contending team? The answer is no. And they haven't really been for 2 years now. Like I understand how 2023, they fell apart at the end. But was that team really, like, for instance, let's just say everything broke right and the Mariners didn't collapse in September. Is that team a World Series caliber team? No, not really, because they couldn't swing the bats. What about last year? They fell apart in June. No, of course they're not a playoff contending team. And anybody that was looking at it objectively would probably tell you that they just didn't have the horses for whatever excuse you wanted to say, whether it's Stanton, whether it's Dakota, whatever the case may be. This team just, and when it comes down to it, you have to ask yourself a question, because prior to 2022, there was a plan in place. It was develop young talent, get into the big leagues, and then augment them with established Major League Baseball players, make a run. And they did that effectively in 2022. Okay, that's cool. So now you've done that and you've broken the curse. What is your plan now? Okay, we want to be a World Series team. Okay, great. How are we going to do that? What's the plan in order to do that? And it just seems to me that what Jerry Dipoto has been doing is minusing assets for pennies on the dollar, and then hoping a guy like Luis Urias throwing darts at a dartboard, hoping that thing will stick, double bullseye. You know what I mean? It's like, and then of course when he misses, it's like it's just like he's taking gambles on high risk, high reward players that, for the lack of a better term, are either that neither had a prime, or maybe they were just a little bit past their prime, or, you put them in a setting that just wasn't conducive to their strengths, like, Teoscar Hernandez. You know what I mean? Where it's like, you saw what he can do in a ballpark that's tailored to his strengths, but they also have pieces around him where you don't have to put pressure on his shoulders in order to perform. Same thing in Toronto, same thing in LA. And when he was in Seattle and he was asked to be that guy, he's not that guy. You know what I mean? And so you miscalculated certain things and it just didn't work out. Or you get rid of guys who were security blankets for certain players, like Eugenio Suarez and Carlos Santana after 2022. They get rid of one without having a plan to fill his position, or you gave up on him a year too early in the case of Eugenio Suarez. So that's the to me, that is the biggest question. It's not who are we going to get, because that's irrelevant. It's what's the plan? Like, what's the plan to get this team back to the playoffs? Because is it player development? So why aren't you bringing up young players then? Is it just is the plan just to draft well and have a well-stocked minor league organization? Okay, great. What's the purpose? What's the end game? Because if it really was player development, check out the Orioles, check out the Rays. Every single year, they're bringing up a new crop of young players. So why aren't them? It's like, what are the Mariners doing? It's like we have the two Colts down there, Cole Emerson, Cole Young. It's like, okay, cool. Are they ready? Okay, great. Why aren't they up?
Cole Young should be MLB ready by then.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, what's the plan? And to me, that's the biggest frustration, because, for years I kept hearing that the Seattle Mariners are a sleeping giant, and it might be true, but we always seem to bring in dudes into our front office that just don't have an effective plan of action.
And the worst part of this whole thing with Castillo too is it seemed that Jerry Dipoto and Justin just gave up. Like, they got the whole "how dare yous" and some weird press about the whole trade proposal, and then they kind of just notice that they haven't even done anything, or they didn't even negotiate, or they didn't even go to other teams. It seems like, oh, well, maybe since they wouldn't take that one, okay, let's just keep Castillo. But the problem I have with that, and now, of course, if we had like the Guggenheims or the Steinbrenners or whoever, or Steve Cohen, we wouldn't even be talking about should we trade Luis Castillo. That no one would be talking about that. But the fact that Mariners have that kind of budget constraints, we have to. But the Mariners aren't even leveraging or taking advantage. Like, they're not taking advantage of their third overall pick. They're not taking advantage of the fact that Oakland overpaid for Luis Severino, and that made Castillo's contract look like a bargain. They're doing none of this.
Right. And, I'll say this, man. When there's a reason why I was like, okay, cool. When they fired Scott Service, why didn't they fire Jerry Dipoto at the same time?
Which they should have done.
What they should have done, right? That it should have been and I was saying this all the way through the end of the season into the playoffs. I don't want Jerry Dipoto's hands on this roster anymore. There's no point. Like, there is no point in facilitating this charade anymore, because at the end of the day, he's had 9 bites at the apple and only produced one playoff appearance. And then since that time has come and passed, we have slowly, quickly, have reverted from what got us there in the first place. And that was the one thing that I gave Jerry Dipoto praise. Like, when he hit the reset button on this franchise and decided to rebuild, there was hope and optimism. Right? We saw some of the good deals that he made. When he got out of Robbie Cano's contract, when it didn't look like it was possible, he got somebody to bite. He got the New York Mets to bite. And it took eating some money, but he was able to do it, right? So where is that executive, right? Where is the guy who knew how to leverage that and get somebody interested and attracted at it? Like, that's the other thing that bugs me as well too, because the things that made him popular in building and getting certain guys to the major league level and getting him in a position to win 90 games out of nowhere in 2021, like, that dude is gone. Jerry Dipoto is long and gone. And that's the other thing, on top of the fact that there's no plan, there's also, like, where is that dude at? And that's why do you think, like, it's funny. I was talking to a buddy of mine a couple days ago, and he was asking me, what do I think about the 2025 Seattle Mariners? I said, don't be surprised if the Oakland A's finish above them, or the Sacramento A's now.
They actually could. I actually think they could actually fight for that division.
Because what are the MO of the A's, right? Like, they'll have 2 or 3 really bad years, and then they'll have a mediocre year, and then all of a sudden they'll come out of nowhere to win the division. Like, the A's are on that upward swing again. Well, they'll have like that 2 or 3 year window where all those young players are at the end of their arbitration years, where they're going to start competing, and then they have to get rid of everybody because they're the A's. You know what I mean? It's like, I look at the 2025 Mariners and I see a team that has no compass, that has no direction. They have a very good minor league organization, but they're also not utilizing those tools at the minor league level. They have a major league roster that is an absolute shambles right now. And they have, 5 or 6 young dudes in their in their major league at their major league roster who are in their arbitration years who they're not utilizing, and it's like that's it's like and I said, don't be surprised if the Oakland A's finish above them, but also don't be surprised if the Angels finish above them too.
They got some young talent in there, and they did kick the Mariners' butts.
And it's like I want to be hopeful every offseason, but like if this is going to be an offseason where remember last year when they tried to hype us on signing Mitch Garver, like everybody on Twitter exploded and they're like Garv sauce, and I was kind of like, Mitch Garver, okay, like that was it. That was your flashy offseason. That was your flashy offseason signing was Mitch Garver.
And he turned into, and at the very end, he turned into Tom Murphy, basically. And
then desperation set in because they weren't willing to pay to bring in a dude like Matt Chapman or Blake Snell. And then desperation set in a little bit towards they got to the end of the offseason, and then they swung the deal for Mitch Haniger. They traded Robbie Ray. You know what I mean? And they got DeSclafani back, and then they moved him for Polanco in Minnesota. And it's like, and you're looking at it kind of like, man, they're just throwing darts at a dartboard again, right? There was no plan. It was like, Polanco, let's see if we can get a name. Let's see if we can fill this with a name who was good. You know what I mean? Let's see if we can do that. And let's see if we can. They did. Let's see if we can, maintain our season ticket base. You know what I mean? Like it's like there's no like I would rather this team blow it up right now. Like I understand it's not popular, but at the very least you're dealing with executives that are good at that. You know what I mean? Like at least that's their wheelhouse. Utilizing some of their minor league depth finally. Like I don't want them to go out there and fill second base with the Adam Frazier's of the world. Like you have Cole Young, play him, do it. Like I'd much rather like they have Ty Locklear, play him, do it.
Don't let him rot.
Don't let him rot. It's like I would much rather see that. I would much rather see the Mariners give playing time to some of these young dudes. And if you're going to bring in Carlos Santana, cool, let him DH. Like, you know what I mean? Because at least it's going to make Julio Rodriguez happy. He's a security blanket. That's cool. Bring him in. But, if budget constraints are if that's really the truth, if that's what you're really telling me and it's really the truth, which it's not, then play him. Then play some of these kids. I'd much rather see Dan Wilson mold and develop young talent than try to placate old knees. You know what I mean? I would much rather see that.
And before we get into Carlos Santana, they just hired a former World Series winning hitting coach. And they could, internally, there are some things they could fix. But, and granted, that may not be enough, but to your point, if we have the hitting coach for it, supposedly, along with Edgar Martinez, yeah, give them a shot. Cole Young. Because if they're not calling up Cole Young for opening day, then they're just wasting their time doing their talking like, oh, yeah, we're trying. No, wrong.
Yeah, no, it's like, that's the, understand that George Kirby, Logan Gilbert, and Cal Raleigh, that's borrowed time. That I know Cal Raleigh got rid of Scott Boras as his agent. That doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean until either of those three re-sign long term, it's on borrowed time. Like that's the depressing part about this entire thing. It's like the supposed core of this team, like it's on borrowed time, right? I'll give you a good example. Like the best part about the A's in the 2000s was that they were not afraid to trade away core members because they knew that they had somebody coming up right behind them. I would like that to me is what I would like to see the Mariners, right? If you're not going to be active in the free agent market, okay, fine. You don't like to give away long-term deals, okay, fine, whatever. But you're also overvaluing the people that you have in. and you're not going to pull the trigger on a deal, like this is the time to trade Luis Castillo, by the way. Like this is the time to do it, right? Where you're actually going to maximize his value before it's too late. How long?
And I think by next, I think by next season, I think.
Yeah, like how long has he been in the majors? 8 years, 9 years, and I think he's like what 29, 30.
He's
like
31.
Like now's the time to do it. Right? There's an old saying: "Get rid of guys 1 year too early before it's 1 year too late." That's like that's like the nexus of a dude like Brian Cashman who understands how to do it. Who was the it was the same. It's the same thing in global football. Alex Ferguson was a genius when it came to getting rid of guys early instead of late. But that being said, it's like if that is this regime's strong suit is developing young talent, establishing a pipeline with your minor league organization, then lean into it hard. You still have a rotation that's going to be around for the next 3 years. So you have guys in your minor league organization who you can continue to develop until they're ready to go. Do it. And then when the time comes, you get rid of them and you reestablish. So just do it. Right now would be the time to do it. Would I be okay if Logan Evans or Emerson Hancock is our 5th starter this year? Yeah, I don't care. That's fine.
It's not the end of the world.
It's not the end of the world, right? Like I would like to see Tyler Locklear, Cole Young. I would, you know what's even funny about this? I would even consider getting rid of JP Crawford.
Now they have a spot for Cole Young, then you have to play him.
Right, but I mean, it's like, but you also have Cole Emerson coming as well too, who's like might be a year away. You know what I mean? Like to me, my expectations are incredibly low. It's true. My expectations are incredibly low. We're talking about a franchise who has one playoff appearance in 23 years. And they're continuing to fumble it every single offseason. I mean, does bringing back Carlos Santana like do anything for you?
Not really. And that's what we want him to do. And at this point, we might as well just talk about him at this point. But we can all agree that it's not going to save the team.
You have a large group of Mariner fans who want Justin Turner back, who's 41.
Santana's going to be like 38, 39. And although as much as I love the idea,
this is where we're at. This is where we're at, as like where you have a section of the fan base that's clamoring for dudes that have been well over the hill for 5 years now. At least Santana is giving you something.
My concern about Santana is when's it going to stop? Like, when's that bubble going to pop is what I'm worried about. And then what if the Mariners get Santana now? What if he ends up like 2010 Ken Griffey Jr.?
What if he ends up like 2024 Jorge Polanco?
It could happen.
Or 2023 AJ Pollock, or 2024 Mitch Garver.
Yeah, it's like we shouldn't be in that situation. But aside, even if without the bat, Carlos Santana still can provide a good clubhouse presence, which it's still very important. But the thing is, the Mariners aren't even doing that either. Like they said that they're going to, and they kept saying it over and over. Oh yeah, we're in the running for Carlos Santana, but where's the result? Are they fumbling on contract negotiations again?
Yeah, like does Carlos want a multi-year deal? And it's like, are you going to give a 38-year-old a 2-year deal? No. So what you do is you give him a 1-year, $5 million deal with like another $5 million in escalators. Like if you reach 350 at-bats and you give us 15 home runs and you maintain an average of 275 or better. You know what I mean? Like bars that aren't hard to clear. So you incentivize him to last the season, you know, and then if he doesn't, all it does is cost you $5 million. And by July, you can DFA him. If it goes wrong, you can DFA him. Not only do you protect yourself from the escalators in his contract, but you're also not giving him guaranteed money where it's going to cripple you like a dude like Mitch Haniger.
It's like we all said it. Justin Hollander and Jerry DiPoto.
Yeah.
Your job is not only a management job, it's a
It's
sales
untenable.
job.
It's untenable, right? Like the situation is untenable now. And the crazy thing is what's going to happen is the season will start, like spring training will come. There's going to be that new optimism that's only going to last for a certain amount of time because the season starts and this team's going to get off to a slow start. And this has the potential to be like the 2005 Mariners or the 2006 Mariners. By Memorial Day, it was done. Like that's the 2025 Mariners have that potential. It could go well. Do you remember I think it was the 2019 Mariners where they went off to like a 13-2 start.
13-2 start, yes.
Yeah, like it could be that as well too. It could be fool's gold. But that being said, it's like right now, the only thing that's keeping this team competitive is the fact that we have probably the best young pitching staff in baseball. The starting rotation is something that everybody covets. That's the only thing that should give Mariner fans hope. But that being said, it's like when I look at the diamond right now, I see we have a catcher, a shortstop, a center fielder, and a left fielder.
Barely a shortstop at this point.
Barely a shortstop, but that's what we have. Right?
Everyone else, it's like you have no idea. First base, you have no idea.
If you're not going to be active in the free agent market because you don't want to spend money that you claim that you don't have, which I, of course, call BS. Of course they have it. They just don't want to spend it. And you're not going to make trades because you overvalue certain players, then what is the plan? And I ask that again, what is the plan?
None of us know.
And that should not give anybody hope. That should scare the ever-living you-know-what out of anybody. Because this is going to be another wasted year.
Which really terrifies me. And then once years go by, Logan Gilbert's like, where's my new contract?
Well, it's not even that. He's like, correct me if I'm wrong. They tried to extend him last offseason and he said no. Right? So it's like you have like on top of like you mentioned that Jerry's job is to be a salesman. You're absolutely right. But you also have to sell this to the players that are on your roster. And you want to get them locked down long term. It's like you have to do the exact same thing. And there's only a certain point where your talking will get you to a certain extent. Then it has to become like you have to show me that you're serious and committed to winning. And when you have 2 off seasons where your moves are AJ Pollock, Cooper Hummel,
Colton Wong,
you're trading Eugenio Suarez for a bag of balls and an empty shoe tin. You know what I mean? It's like what, you know what I mean? Like that's not, especially when you gave these young players a taste of the postseason in 2022, and that's where they're going to make their money. Like a lot of people think that these players are going to get their contract extensions based on the numbers of the regular season. Yes and no, but it's also what can you do in the playoffs. Because a lot of these teams are playoff contenders and they want to be there because they want to win championships because they understand what championships do to their franchise. So it's like winning, like that's the thing that the Mariners have never understood, that winning cures everything. And if you can get there and if you can be a postseason team if you can be a postseason team 3 out of 5 years and you're competing for championships, it's going to make everything look more attractive to your franchise. And that's what these players want because they understand what happens if you can lead a team to the postseason, but also deep postseason runs. That's what these players want. Cal Raleigh wants that. George Kirby, Logan Gilbert definitely want that. But what does Jerry DiPoto want?
And 54%? It's not like, and doing us a favor. And it's not like he's getting fired. Like John Stanton didn't even give him any kind of like some scare tactics to like, hey, do your job or you're fired. He's not even doing that either.
His seat has to be hot, though. His seat has to be hot. It has to be red hot. And that's, coming into this offseason, I think I said this to you and I said, like, he understands like this has to be it, right? Like he has to have a monster offseason to not only reinstill hope with the fan base, but also let his boss know that he's committed, right? So if if this offseason comes and goes with just marginal, like, lateral moves that don't move the needle, and this team struggles, that's got to be it. Then. That has to be it. Like he has to swing for the fences.
And it's like you would think that he would have that kind of sense of urgency, but we're just not seeing it out of.
Do you remember when Bill Bavasi and Jack Zarenzik were on the hot seat? That offseason going into their walk year, like they knew it. They knew that they were coming into like the make or break season, and so they went out that offseason and tried to be bold. Now it didn't pay off, obviously, because there was a lot of desperation in it. So I think Jerry Dipoto doesn't want to appear desperate and do things, make moves out of sheer desperation, like trading Luis Castillo for Tristan Casas or Alec Boehm straight up, because he doesn't want to appear desperate. And in that need to not feel desperate, he's not making good baseball moves.
He's not. And we've seen it. Now, within the last 2 years, the only things he's done well is that trade deadline. I will still give him credit to that he at least gave it a shot. Now, what prevented me from giving him an A was he did not go for one more player. Yanni Diaz, Vlad Guerrero Jr.
Well, but that's also a sign that they were completely full of shit in the offseason, though, right? When they were saying that they had a strict budget that they couldn't go over because of root sports, blah, 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 blah. And then they have a deadline where they bring in $20 million of extra payroll that allegedly they didn't have in the offseason.
Yeah, and they didn't even, very fishing. They didn't have to move any big contracts either to make it happen.
Right. They just spent because they could. And that's where my BS meter just goes off. But I will say this, that I hate to be the one to admit this because it's my team, and I always want the best for the Mariners, and I certainly want to see a World Series parade down 4th Avenue in downtown Seattle. But I almost hope that the 2025 season goes awry and they're mathematically eliminated by Memorial Day, because it's this fan base should expect better. It should want better, and it should want guys like Jerry Dipoto not with their hands on this roster anymore. Like for whatever reason, they stopped doing what was in the best interest of this ball club, and they started worrying about things like profitability and profit margins, and that all of that is important. I don't want to say that it's not, but at the end of the day, it's like you're in a business that's driven by results. And if your priority is not winning the World Series, then you're not in this business for the right reasons.
If they wanted to be in a business where profit is strictly concerned, go to McDonald's.
Well, this is what people hated George Steinbrenner back in the 90s and the 2000s, but he also understood that profitability can be achieved if you win. Right? Look at what the Yankees turned out to be and where they are now as a franchise because of the four championships in 5 years in that dynasty, in that late 90s bubble. You know what I mean? Like, look at what that franchise turned out to be.
One of the most valuable franchise in all of sports.
And they're also one of the most profitable teams, and yet they're still even when the Yankees had that drought of not being in the World Series, because I think they won it in 2009, and they didn't get back to the World Series until this last year. But every single year they were insanely profitable, and they were still trying. And that's the thing. It's like that's what winning does for your franchise, right? Like if you wanted to, and look at the Dodgers, since the Guggenheim team, since the Guggenheim Corporation, whatever the hell, that ownership group took over, and they understood. It's like, listen, we can be that team to print money, and we can go out there and just compete for every single player on the open market, and as long as we're above the curve with a certain amount of wins per season, we're going to be able to attract this many people, and it's going to equal this, and we're going to be able to stay stay ahead of the curve profitability wise. And then you have a team like the Seattle Mariners who are like, well, if we just appear to be contending, we're going to like our profitability is going to be like at the 14%. And if we just, only like raise our payroll like by 4% every single year, we might be able to bring in one guy and we can build around with some young guys and, we can appear to be contending. That's going to mean this. And it's like, that's not how you inspire people. That's how you turn people away.
Yeah. I mean, there's not every fan operates and mentally like us.
And that's the reason why nobody came to T-Mobile Park from like
2004.
No, it was like 2010 to like 2015, 16. Like you would get like 8,000 on a random Tuesday night. Like nobody came because there was no trust. There was no trust in the ownership group.
2010 season, the Seattle Storm even got more attendance for a day than the 2010 Seattle Mariners did.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like eventually what's going to happen is you're going to alienate your fan base. And the worst part about it was it almost feels like a tease. 2021, 22 felt like a tease because they were trying to sell this notion that we were committed to bringing a championship. And then we've seen what's happened since. And it's like, no, that was, you guys were just full of it. There's no way that you can look at this team today and think that they have a plan.
They don't really seem to have a plan.
I would love to sit down with Jerry and just ask him, what's your plan?
Well, maybe if I can become friends with Locked On Mariners, I could maybe make something happen. But that's
are you still hoping for a little Ty Dane Gonzalez love out there? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, I want love from everyone. Like, not that I'm trying to seek the love. Maybe I'll get the love by doing this by myself at this point. But yeah, let's all form together and let's knock on Jerry DiPoto's doors. Like, hey, we got some questions for you, buddy. At least Ty Gonzalez can probably lead that.
You should just go knock on Jerry's door.
Let's do it.
Let's do
it.
Dude, he would be pissed.
I would. Yeah, they would, and they'll do everything to cancel my channel. But since we've already pretty much talked about the lack of activity, let's just make it even funnier. Where Justin Hollander, the GM of the Mariners, which Jerry DiPoto is still the GM at this point, he said this kind of stuff, and I'll just read it before you say anything. I just have to. He's like, we usually don't lack activity. There just hasn't been the right set of circumstances yet allow us to add, but I'm confident we'll get there. Okay. We think our starting rotation is the best in baseball. Yeah. They pitch deeper in the games. Okay, I get it. I know what he's saying. He's saying stuff that we already say.
Okay.
Last one, because the other one was about Julio. Don't really care about that. We need to add to our infield. Uh-huh. We're working hard to do that. Are you? I think we love to add some type of first base impact to go along with Luke Raley, who can also add swing to our outfield, which you could have gotten Cody Bellinger. Then the rest of the infield is flexible enough so we could add at second. We could add at third. We could add in any variety of different ways. Well, they had a chance, and his name was Cody Bellinger, and you completely slept on that one. And the Yankees got him for basically nothing. Good job, Justin. You said you're working hard, but if you were working hard, Cody Bellinger would be a Mariner, and our show would be a little bit different. Your thoughts on that?
I think it's lip service, right? We could add at second base. We could add at first base. We could add in the bullpen. We could do all of these great things, but we're not because of let me throw a dart at our excuses dartboard because of inflation. Yeah, inflation. Or no, it's because of root sports. No, it's
No, it's because T-Mobile Park is garbage and nobody wants to play there.
Yeah. Let's go with that one. Let's go with the marine layer. They don't want to come here because of the marine layer or the hitting eye or whatever random excuses you want to throw out. It's like, no. And this is the biggest problem, right? There's no accountability, right? It's like, just say it. Just say the reason why you're not adding. It's because you don't want to. There's a certain price tag that scares you and you're unwilling to do it. Like the idea of swinging on a 1-year deal for Cody Bellinger, even though he fits every profile that you could want, plays multiple positions. His left-handed bat is a pull bat profile to the right field side, right? That is a bat that profiles so well for T-Mobile Park. And he does everything that you claim to love, but the reason why you didn't want to bring him in is because you're scared of the $25 million price tag, and you're afraid of getting rid of the next coming of Yordan Alvarez, because you want to see him in a Mariner uniform in 2030. You know what I mean? So it's like, don't sell us on the like we could do this and we could do that. No. Just, I would have far more respect for them to tell it like it is.
Howard Lincoln, at least he said our goal was not to win a World Series. It was just to field a competitive team. We have to make a profit. Exactly. At least he was honest, but these guys...
Jerry, that's what Jerry said, right? If we can just be winning at a 54% clip, we'll eventually see ourselves in the playoffs.
Wow, basically the same thing. That's kind of terrifying.
It's the exact same thing as Howard Lincoln. We're not interested in winning World Series. We're just interested in fielding competitive teams because we know 3 million fans will come through our turnstiles every single year, and we'll be able to profit. See, it's just worded different.
I really wanted to have I wanted to scream like Stephen A. Smith, because I've seen a video of his when he was ranting about the 2000s New York Knicks with Stephon Marbury.
A walking abomination. A walking embarrassment. A disgrace of the highest order.
But because this microphone needs an upgrade and it has huge distorting problems, which you've heard it, and you guys have too, and I'm upgrading my microphone and I can't reach it because... And the pitch. And now here's a fly ball to deep right field, and that is gone! Cal Raleigh has broken the record! I don't have a long enough arms.
Here, let me try. Tim Tebow, skip. All right, that was my Stephen. Are you smoking the weed?
That's my. Until I get a microphone, which there's another component I need to upgrade. It's supposedly better than this one. I can't really have a Stephen A. Smith rant, so because of my microphone constraints, I cannot blast anything right now. And also, before we close, I looked up some data on my own YouTube channel for the last time the Mariners played a playoff game, which was October 15th, 2022. Guess how many subscribers I had on October 15th, 2022?
How many? How many subs do you have?
Just take a guess of how many it was back then, because right now I'm about at
130.
28.
You had 28, okay.
My YouTube channel was in infancy the last time the Mariners made the playoffs. That's terrifying.
On my YouTube channel, I started this 3 months ago, and for a month and a half, I had 12, 13, and now I'm up to 175-ish. So in 3 months, I've done pretty well.
It seems we're outperforming the Mariners in other avenues. And also the last time Mariners were in the playoffs, Marine Layer Podcast, Seattle Sports Radio didn't necessarily know them. Couch GM wasn't even monetized.
One of the things that I really believe that every one of us that do it, you, Jay Strident, Marine Layer, whatever, Soto Mojo, whoever it is, it's now time to hold the franchise accountable. Right? The days of them trying to sell us on a vision are long. It's dead and buried and it's long gone. Right now it's accountability, because we got back to the playoffs a few years ago. And as good as that was a cool celebration to see playoff playoff baseball at T-Mobile Park. That was a very awesome scene. They have progressively gotten to the point where now it's untenable. And that's the thing is I call on all Mariner podcasters, all Mariner YouTubers to hold this franchise accountable and make sure that their listeners understand that this will not work anymore. Like if you want our money, or if you want us to watch Root Sports or whatever the case may be, you actually have to put a product on the field that's capable of winning a championship. And it's not just for a season, but it's also, having that mentality of championship or bust. Like it's that time where not only does Jerry DiPoto need to hear it, but John Stanton has to hear it as well too. It's like, listen, man, we're not going to continue to show up at T-Mobile Park if your idea of a good offseason is Carlos Santana or Mitch Garver. You're selling us on like C-level free agents. You know what I mean? It's like, come on, man. Like
even getting Sasaki, I would still consider as doing below the bare minimum. They got to do multiple things in order for the Mariners to even return to the playoffs. And at this point, it's almost like if the Mariners even return to the playoffs, that will be overly excited. I won't. I'm still like, where's my World Series? I've wanted this since
why do you
2000.
And why do you think earlier in the show, I was like, I want to see Ty Locklear and I want to see Cole Young and I want to see some of these prospects, because at least you're leaning into what you do good, which is player development and bringing kids up to bringing young prospects up to the major league level. At least I would understand it. At least I can wrap my head around that. This is something that you're good at doing, and then you can take the remaining prospects that aren't going to have a future in Seattle, then you can ship them off and augment them with the Carlos Santanas of the world. Or the veteran player, fill in the blank to fill out a roster spot. At least I would understand it. But I just don't understand the direction of this franchise right now. I don't understand what their end game is. I don't know what they're trying to achieve. It certainly is not a World Series championship,
which terrifies the living life out of me, because both of us lived through a wasted dynasty years. Should have been dynasty years of Ken Griffey Jr., Alex Rodriguez, Randy Johnson.
I saw this franchise waste the young years and prime of Alvin Davis, Harold Reynolds, Mark Langston before they got rid of him, Mike Moore,
Tom Paciorek, if you just want to throw it in there.
Pete O'Brien. I'm just messing around with PDO, but you get what I'm saying. It's like Harold Reynolds, Jay Buhner, Edgar Martinez, Ichiro Suzuki, Felix Hernandez, A-Rod Jr.,
Brett Boone.
You name it. Brett Boone. Well, they traded him. His prime was within Cincinnati, but you get what I'm saying. And then Randy Johnson. It's like this franchise has more of a history of wasting some of the best players this game has ever seen.
Generational talent that other teams would have killed to get.
Instead of they have a better track record of wasting generational talent than they do of getting to the playoffs. I mean,
let's not forget Felix Hernandez.
The
most wasted talent in Mariners history.
This team has 5 playoff appearances in nearly 50 years. That's it.
Let me count that. 95, 97, 2000,
2001,
2022.
That's it. Like, I would kill for a 5, from 1995 to 2001, that little 6-year gap. We had 4 playoff appearances in 6 years. I would take that.
Yeah, at least they were competent for something, even though it was still considered incompetent.
That's the thing. It's like, the people roll their eyes when I say, I'd rather see him blow it up. Because at least I understand that. If you trade away Julio Rodriguez, I understand it. I get it. You would probably, by the way, and you would probably get some very good players back in return. It's funny. That's the thing. It's like, I just don't want to see it again. because Julio's here for at least another 10 more years. And let me ask you a question. Okay, so we're going to have Julio for his entire prime. How many playoff appearances in the next 10 years will Julio Rodriguez get to see?
1. And it will be out of freak accident.
That's exactly
I think it'll
right.
be out of freak accident if they make the playoffs again. It will be because Sacramento's thing fell apart. Houston, all of a sudden, they just can't compete anymore, which they're kind of heading that direction, but never bank on that. Angels, young farms.
The Houston still has the resources, in the financial flexibility where they're going to be able to plug holes with good players.
But the only way the Mariners make the playoffs again is the 4 other teams have to collapse. And I think, you know what? Before we even end this, I think that's what the Mariners are banking on. They're banking on other teams to regress. That was this year. Right? 2024 was this year where you would take advantage of a weak division because Houston started off injured and the Mariners Texas was injured.
And Texas was injured, and you had a 10-game lead in the division at one point. You know what I mean? That was supposed to be this year.
Oakland had their mindset on Sacramento and Vegas.
Right.
And the Angels, yeah, sure, they're young players, Joe Adele, blah, 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 and Nolan, that kid. But it still wasn't enough.
I will say in the next 10 years, as we have Julio Rodriguez under contract, I will say that the Oakland/Sacramento/Las Vegas A's and the LA Angels will have more playoff appearances than the Seattle Mariners in that time frame.
Do you think by the time the Mariners make the playoffs again, let's say if they don't, do I reach 10,000 subscribers before the Mariners?
Ooh,
actually, what's more likely? Rooftop Sports gets 10,000 subscribers.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Or the Mariners win a World Series.
Ooh, I think you reach 10,000 subs before that happens. I'll extend this one, okay? So you have your pick here, okay? So What happens first? The Mariners getting to the playoffs, or you hitting 10,000 subs, or the Sonics? They announce that the expansion Sonics are back. What happens first?
No, let me take it further.
Okay.
Mariners playoffs.
Or the Washington State Cougars get into the college football playoff. That almost seems as likely as the Mariners getting to the playoffs.
How about this? Sonics coming back and winning a championship before the Mariners even go to the ALCS.
Ooh. So the Sonics coming back and getting to an NBA final?
Or a championship.
Ooh. How about the Sonics coming back and then they actually get to the playoffs?
Before the Mariners make the playoffs.
Before the Mariners get to an LCS. We'll just say LCS, not even the World Series, just an LCS.
Oh. I'm putting my money on the Sonics because
I'm putting on you getting 10,000 subs before the Mariners get to an LCS. And at least the Sonics, they're announced coming back.
I think the Sonics announcing expansion before Mariners making the playoffs is actually more likely.
Yeah, because I would probably assume that's going to happen within the next 3 years, that the Sonics will get announced as an expansion team along with Las Vegas. I think that's going to happen within the next 3 years. So the Mariners have a 3-year gap to the end of the Logan Gilbert, George Kirby, Cal Raleigh tenure. So 3 more years. So within that, will the Mariners make the playoffs, or will the Sonics get announced as an expansion team, or you reaching 10,000 subs in 3 years?
Seattle Supersonics.
Yeah, I would probably say so too.
Not that I want to doubt myself. It's just that YouTube algorithm stuff works weird.
It's hard, man. It's hard.
What kind of videos will pop? Granted, the last 2 weeks, I got lucky with a video that I slapped together on a Monday night and got very less sleep. That got 1,000 when I was saying, hey, the Mariners should be doing this, and their GM sucks.
Sure.
And the other one was just a Friday the 13th show with Jay Trident Podcast, basically saying almost the same exact thing as we are doing now. But Cody Bellinger is the reason why I slapped together a last-minute podcasting. Thanks, Cody. Or shall I say, you damn Yankees.
I just think that it should be the responsibility of all Seattle sports podcasters that cover the Seattle Mariners to hold this franchise accountable. I think it's imperative that happens. To have the fan base say, no, enough with this. It's either you put up or we're not coming back.
Yeah, I mean,
because
I'd love to go back.
Because you know what happens if the Mariner fan base as a collective, there's going to be like a few stragglers that'll still show up because they're baseball fans. Okay, great. But if 75% of the Mariner fan base said, you know what, we're not coming back until you can actually show that you're committed to winning a championship, what's going to happen is attendance is going to spike. It's going to dip to a point where it's going to be untenable, where John Stanton's probably going to be forced to sell.
At least when the Mariners made their voices clear before the Mariners signed Robinson Cano, because attendance was in its depths.
Yeah.
And ironically, those were the most times I actually went to baseball games because they were dirt cheap.
Yeah. It's funny because I used to go to 40 games a year because I was living up on Capitol Hill, and the team was so bad that you would be able to get like a $10 center field bleacher seat, but there would only be like for random night games, like on a Thursday night, a Thursday 7:00 start, there would be like maybe 8,000 to 10,000 fans in the stadium. Like it was empty. Like even when like a heady would come in, like the Red Sox would come in, or the Yankees would come in, or the Cubs, you would have more Red Sox, Yankees, and Cubs fans than you would have Mariner fans in the stadium, and it would be empty.